Dallas Theological Seminary's Chapel Podcast.
As I shared with our visitors earlier this morning around breakfast, the incredible heritage of our history at Dallas Seminary and the leaders that God has brought to us in times past, there is two directions of God's working. When I became the fifth president of Dallas Seminary, Dr. Walford, who was our second president, was still alive. And one of my most cherished pictures is Dr. Walford sitting in a chair and Dr. Campbell, Dr. Swindoll, and myself standing behind him as they took that picture the first day my presidency was announced. But the reason it is so special is because there was a time when all four of us had offices on campus at the same time. And when you talk to other schools and other leaders, that's almost unheard of. But I would not be where I'm at and not be doing what I'm doing if those three men had not so built into my lives and so affirmed the direction that God was leading me even before I knew He was leading me in what He wanted for my days in these short days. But also the direction goes backward of everyone who is in that picture has honored the one who came before or the ones who have come before. And my commitment is to honor Dr. Walford, who is now with the Lord, whom I had the privilege of serving for a few years. Dr. Campbell, who is our president emeritus, and our beloved speaker this morning, Dr. Charles Swindoll, who continues to be our chancellor. And in our role, that's a representative for the seminary. He speaks, he writes, he endorses, he represents us so well. And I have such deep and abiding affection for all of the previous leaders as well as my colleagues with whom I get to work. But it is a privilege to introduce him to you. He served on our board for many years, having served in churches of pastoral ministries, as a writer, as obviously the voice of Insight for Living. But for many years, he served on our board before he was tapped to be our fourth president here at DTS. And now he continues in his role of chancellor and continues to be an inspiration and encouragement to all of us. And all of us probably in this room have been affected by his ministry in profound ways. Would you join me in welcoming our chancellor, Dr. Chuck Swindoll, to our chapel this morning?
Good morning. There is an unwelcomed and insidious presence among us today and will be around us throughout our lives on this earth. And he is the adversary who knows every move you and I are making. And he has, as a part of his team, an insidious body of demons who work against everything we pursue for the glory of God. And as I say those words, I am thinking of the early part of the book of Job, where we read almost the same words at the beginning of the first two chapters. If you brought your Bible with you, let's get right into it. And let's witness him as he is doing what he loves to do, and that is to bring to ruin those who desire to serve him. Among such was a man named Job. He is, in the first 5 verses of this first chapter, portrayed as the single most significant man, and certainly a man of God, in his era. And then we read shortly after his biography the words that appear in verse 6 and following. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. It's a stretch of the context, but I think of you who are searching for God's will, seeking his mind regarding your future in your graduate work in theology. And I think as you present yourself to the Lord for his will to be made known, Standing nearby is an emissary of the evil one who will do everything he can to dislodge you and move you away from this holy and lovely pursuit of your life. He has been doing it for centuries. He knows every weakness. He has made a study of us long before we even knew he existed. And because this is true, we're able to see the style of his working in the life of one as godly as Job. Well, you know the story. He is accusing and he is working against the plan of Job's life. He encounters the Lord and says, "You have blessed him beyond measure. Who wouldn't serve you? Who wouldn't walk with you? Who wouldn't represent you? But if you put forth your hand and you touch all that he has," verse 11, "he will surely curse you to your face." The Lord permitted that, and the result was removing everything important to Job, including his 10 children. Aside from a few friends and his own wife, everything of significance is taken from him. His servants, his belongings, the land is ruined, the buildings are shattered, and the most heinous of all, before long, Job and his wife are standing beside 10 fresh graves. You and I can't even imagine. Someone has wisely said that the most grievous thing in all of life is to survive one's own child. But Job and his wife bury all 10 of their adult children. It is so easy to move on through a passage like this out of familiarity, or searching for a sermon, if you will, or interest in the Hebrew text, as rich and colorful as it is, and to miss the deep grief of his heart. I can't imagine their conversation that night, wherever they sat. And for however long they talked, perhaps through the hours of the night, as they grieved the death of their precious adult children. And rather than cursing God, you read in verse 25 verbs that just sort of jump from the text. He arose, he tore his robe, he shaved his head, he fell to the ground, and he doesn't curse. The last word is he worshiped. He worshiped. This certainly verifies the character of the man. He worshiped. His words are so meaningful, they have found their way into great poems as well as fine hymns, choruses of worship to this day. Naked I came from my mother's womb, naked I shall return there. The Lord gave, the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And the text adds, through all this, Job did not sin, nor did he blame God. In your journey from earth to heaven, and certainly during your theological training, you will discover that nothing will pain you like suffering. Suffering. Permitted by your loving and caring Heavenly Father, designed to bring you to your knees, not to ruin you, which was the Satan's plan, but to develop you. And the great temptation will be in your moments of doubt to curse, to complain, and for some, just simply to walk away. It's too much. It's just too much. So I want to prepare you today for whatever may be the plan. I can assure you it includes days of pain. I assure you of that. It isn't written into the curriculum of Dallas Seminary or any seminary, but it's a major part of it. You will learn more there in the crucible, which, by the way, comes from a Latin term, crux, cross, crux. It means, if you check in Webster's, a severe test, this word crucible, a place or situation in which concentrated forces interact to cause change or development. It's pretty eloquent, isn't it? Change and development. Well, it's done. It's over. Finally, the test is passed. We'll go on. They say to one another, we'll make it. We'll start over. Only to have this second chapter return like a bad nightmare. Like the planes that struck the towers. One after another, and then another in the Pentagon, and another in the Pennsylvania Meadowlands. And all permitted, in Satan's mind, I repeat, to ruin Job. See the word in verse 3, middle of the verse. He still holds fast his integrity, although you incited me, says the Lord to the adversary. You incited me against him to ruin him without a cause. The Hebrew term means to swallow. It is an apial stem, intensifying the verb. John Hartley in his commentary says it adds a barb to the verb. To finish him off. To have him turn away and, despising you, turn against everything he once held dear. To ruin him. Never forget it. That is the adversary's plan for you. He comes uninvited and unwanted, but he is there, relentlessly there, to bring you down. The word is ruin, to ruin you, to swallow you up. Satan answered the Lord and said, skin for skin, yes, all that a man has, he will give for his life. However, you put forth your hand now and touch his bone and his flesh. He'll curse you to your face. Every man has his limit. Every woman has her final boundary. Every soul can go only so far, and that'll be it for him. So the Lord said to Satan, behold, he's in your power. Only spare his life. What a statement. Puts a chill up my back to read those words. He is in your power, but don't take his life. Well, this is where it gets very, very personal. Satan went from the presence of the Lord and smote Job with sore boils. Well, as you can imagine, commentators and physicians alike have had a field day diagnosing this loathsome disease. Sore boils from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. What does that represent? Well, we have among our faculty a distinguished dermatologist, so trust me, I'm not going to go very deeply into this. Dr. Abe will be happy to help you afterwards if you would like to know what it really means. But in my amateurish ability, I will tell you the breadth of what this has been called. Some say it was smallpox, others a form of elephantiasis, chronic eczema, leprosy, another psoriasis, pityriasis, keratosis, Femengus foliosus, don't laugh, Dr. Abe, and some form of melanoma, which we all understand. Human misery. I have in my earlier years had a boil. I remember throwing a paper out as a kid with this boil. Happened to be right here, I'm left-handed, it happened to be right here on my throwing hand, this boil. My mother called it a carbuncle. I don't know the difference. I know it's full of pus and it hurts, and I didn't want anybody to touch it, but I just had one of them. He had them from the crown of his head to the soles of his feet. Once again, it's necessary that we pause and let that in. When you read through Job, as I have done, you will find woven through the fabric of the book various statements related to this illness, this malady, this misery. I'll save you the references to the verses. Just listen. They were inflamed ulcerous sores, persistent itching, degenerative changes in facial skin and disfiguration, resulted in loss of appetite, fears and depression, purulent sores that burst open, scabbed over, cracked, and oozed with pus. Some had worms that formed in the sores. There was difficulty in breathing, darkening of eyes, foul breath, loss of weight, excruciating continual pain, fever with chills and discoloring of skin, anxiety, diarrhea, delirium, sleeplessness, rejection of friends, and all of this lasting for months on end. Satan's having a field day. Remember, he had done nothing to deserve this. Nothing. There's no one nearby to explain it, and God is silent. Not a word. Not even a "I understand." There is complete confusion, total isolation, no visible reason to hope that it will ever get better. And then comes along Mrs. Job. Now, I thought you would probably smile at that, because preachers have taken shots at Mrs. Job, in my opinion, far too long. So before we castigate Mrs. Job and see the advice Job would give her, may I remind you, and just call this Mars speaking of Venus, okay? She too had lost 10 children. She too had suffered the loss of their wealth and all their possessions. Her husband once sat in the gate. Today, no one has any interest in anybody sitting on the ash heap. She's lost all dignity. Her home is now the garbage dump where they burned dung in ancient days. She once enjoyed the blessing and the prestige of being the wife of the most prominent man in the East, chapter 1, verse 3. He is now nothing at all like that. She's no longer the leading lady. She has also lost the companionship, the romance, the joy, the laughter, the quiet evenings, fixing meals, relaxing. It was a deep, dark valley for Mrs. Job. By the way, a word to you who are husbands. If you are the one in the midst of your studies or preparing for study, and And you will be the one who will receive so much of the riches of truth that will come your way. Continue to be a man of understanding, gentleness, care. We Christian leaders can be such pathetic husbands. I'm reading Dan Allender's book, Leading with a Limp. It's a great book. I like the title. And in it, he says this: I counsel a man of immense wealth who is the champion of several national Christian ministries. His marriage was crumbling, and he sought my help. When anyone asks this man what directs his life, he readily answers, knowing Christ and making him known. His life goal is to have all things submitted to Jesus, though he acknowledges that he fails daily in achieving this goal. During one counseling session, I addressed the man's tyrannical, belittling behavior toward his wife. She was present in the room, and she listened silently. He sprayed me with a barrage of self-justification. When I pressed against it, I was told that I simply didn't understand the extent of his wife's failures. He argued that I had been swayed earlier in the counseling session by his wife's stated willingness to change. Around and around we went until I called his self-righteousness what it was: ugly. With that, he stormed out of my office, flinging invectives, leaving his wife with no way to get home. This lion of industry and faith is a thoroughgoing narcissist whose wealth and power have shielded him from hearing anything that goes against his grain of empty, indulged, and fragile self. He has been in fellowship, in Bible studies, spends time with many famous Christian leaders, whatever that means. Those are my words, not his. None of whom has ever called him on how he treats his wife and his subordinates. Neither have any of these leaders asked him to tell the stories from his childhood that oriented him to being empty and brutal. No one has attempted to grow his character outside of Bible study and organizational loyalty and church involvements. And I believe this is the case for most Christians. Don't get that way, men. I don't care how great you are in school. Don't get that way. It's a stupid way to conduct your life. How a man handles his own family is an illustration of how he will handle the church. Dominating at home, he is a dictator in leadership at church. So when you interview, be sure you meet with the wife and the children and pay close attention. Now, back to our story. Just a little sidebar there. As Cynthia and I say on occasion, we go ding, we do a sidebar, and then we get back to things. Okay. So his wife says to him, do you still hold fast your integrity? Curse God and die. There is no way on earth I can justify her words, nor am I trying to do that. I'm simply asking for some understanding here. She's lapsed in faith. She's representing, really speaking, unknowingly for both God and Satan. God is the one who said he will hold fast his integrity. And Satan is the one who said he will curse you and that to your face. Well, Job sees that. Job understands that. You say things in grief you will never say any other place, in unguarded moments, and aren't you grateful that her words have been recorded and not yours? for preachers down through the centuries to rake. Let me give a couple of words of advice to you wives who, if Job could speak today, I think he would offer this counsel very practically. Always guard your words when your husband is going through hard times. Just guard your words. When your relationship is what it should be, your words mean more to him than you'll ever know. I can still repeat words my wife said 45 years ago. We'll be married 54 years this coming June. I can still remember a few things she said, even our first year of marriage. Guard your words when your husband's going through really hard times. Job's wife need to remember that. Hard times weaken even the strongest of men. And we lose our objectivity. We're not as stable. Our emotions are running away with our heads, and discernment weakens. Discrimination gets thin, and we are vulnerable, and we are fearful, and we have alien thoughts all on our own. The other night I was really low, and I said to Cynthia, I'm really starting to slump. It was during supper. And she paused and let me finish. It was a sidebar. So I had a few more things I wanted to say, and she listened to all of it. And when I finished, she said, I'm right here. And I'm going to stand alongside you no matter what. I hope you don't slump. Because you can be strong through this, just like I can. We had gotten some tough news. And just her words of understanding were so helpful. I didn't know then that I would be speaking on this today, but that comes to mind. She's saying to Job, in effect, like we'd say today, just pull the plug and it'll all be over and you'll be with the Lord. I hate to see you suffer like this. So always guard your words when your husband is going through hard times. And secondly, here's another. Never suggest that we compromise our integrity, even if it would provide temporary relief. Try your best never to go there with us. We're already tempted, and to have you suggest something like this kind of pushes us over the edge. You're very powerful, ladies. We take that covenant called a marriage contract very seriously. We listen to you like we listen to no one else. We really need your wisdom. You're valuable. So he said to her, you speak as one of the foolish women speaks. Shall we indeed accept good from God and not accept adversity? God bless him. Look at that. In all this, Job did not sin with his lips. Well, I've given some advice to the wives, and I want to speak words to the husbands now. Guys, our role in our wives' life is extremely important, especially during times of suffering. And so let me suggest for you and for me a few very personal words. First, listen well to your wife and then tell her the truth. They go together. We're fairly good at the second. We're pretty pathetic with the first. Just listen. Just listen to her. Job doesn't interrupt her. Job doesn't blast her. She finishes what she has to say. If she said more, it isn't recorded. But I've found that most husbands fail to really listen to what their wives are saying. And then he told her the truth. He said, your words are not honoring to God. We can't go there. That's not the best counsel. So he told her the truth. Second, teach her what you've learned about God. He says to her, shall we indeed accept good from God and not accept adversity? You know, that's a wonderful, wonderful verb, accept. It's not the word tolerate or endure. It's accept. Accept. Little word study on it, and I can't find it in my notes, and time is short, so that's worth looking up. He's teaching her something of what it's amazing insight. We have a faithful God, and he has not forgotten us, if you will. Here we are in the middle of our seminary years. God led us here. Now the bottom has dropped out. We can't see our way through. We just lost our baby. And your job situation is really thin, but we can't quit now. Let's just remind ourselves today of the faithful God that we serve. Teach her what you learn. Rather than getting puffed up and proud over what you pick up in your classes, come home with that information. Your wife would love to learn along with you. The third thing I would say for all of us husbands is to model verbal purity. In this, he does not sin with his lips. Never once does his wife hear him utter a curse word or a blasphemous statement. Wife often takes her cues from her husband. I've married hundreds and hundreds of couples, and I've watched more often than not the habits of a husband drag down the life of a wife in homes where there is a broken kind of dysfunctional relationship. So model verbal purity. And number 4, accept her completely and love her unconditionally. Job doesn't say, get out of my life. How could you possibly say such a thing? He's committed to her. Well, he doesn't sin with his lips. And all of a sudden, 3 friends show up. As a good buddy of mine says, they just added stink to his stack when they showed up. What a bunch. They're named for us. I'm sure they were thrilled to see that in the years to come. I think as Eugene Peterson makes a great comment as he sees these guys trying to fix this situation. He says, wherever there is a sufferer, fixers come like vultures onto roadkill. Isn't that a good way to put it? Wherever you find somebody suffering, fixers are there. We're going to fix this situation. I am a number 1 fixer in our neighborhood. If I'm not careful, the number 1 fixer at our church. Finally, I'm learning. I can't go there. I can't do that. So, let's learn some things about friends, and I'm through, okay? Now, when Job's 3 friends heard of all his adversity that had come upon him, they came, each one from his own place. Eliphaz, Bildad, Zophar. So first thing I would say is that friends care enough to come without being asked. So you've got to hand it to them. No one invited them. They came on their own. When you know someone is going through time of suffering, deep suffering, severe time, don't wait for an invitation. Don't expect a phone call. Just be there. Just go on your own. Please notice they came, made an appointment together to come to sympathize with him and to comfort him. Second, friends respond with sympathy and comfort right out of the text. They come to sympathize and to comfort. They forgot their agenda after a while, but that's why they came. Sympathy includes identifying with the sufferer, doing your best to step into the crucible with the individual and to feel what they're feeling. Comfort is an attempt to ease the pain, helping in any way you can to make their sorrow a little lighter. Sometimes words like, I love you. I am so sorry about your loss. If you've never experienced the same, don't say, I know how you feel, because you don't. But you can say, I can't imagine the depth of your pain. That's comforting to someone. But I'm here. They come to sympathize and to comfort. Third, friends openly express the depth of their feelings. They openly express the depth of their feelings. See verse 12? They lifted up their eyes at a distance and did not recognize him. This is because of the swollen condition. They didn't recognize him. They raised their voices and they wept, tore their robes and threw dust over their heads toward the sky. They are aghast. Sometime in a hospital call, I'll walk in and I will see what just almost takes my breath away. Hardest floor for me to be on is the leukemia floor for little children. I can hardly take it anymore. The hollow eyes of the parents, the little white-skinned, bald-headed children. It's almost more than I can bear. They felt like this. Oh, Job. Warren Wiersbe says, there's the city dump where garbage was deposited and burned. There the city's rejects live, begging alms from whoever passes by. At the ash heap, dogs fight over something to eat. The city's dung is brought and burned there. The city's leading citizen was now living in abject poverty and shame. All that he humanly had left were his wife and the 3 friends, and even they finally turned against him. It's a sad story. Don't try to jump to the end and get to chapter 42 and say, see there how great, how good it is. There are 41 chapters of misery. I remember preaching through Job. Now I'm going to tell you something. Don't do that as a start off. Okay? First of all, I thought folks would walk out on me, but it's been amazing to hear the response people on a series on Job. I mean, it's amazing. And when I finished, there was a standing ovation. You know why? Because I finished Job. Over, done. But to this day, I had people remind me of some things he picked up in the study of Job. He knows the way that I take. When he has tried me, I shall come forth as gold. My foot has held his steps. His way have I kept and not declined. Neither have I gone back from the command of his lips. I have esteemed the words of his mouth more than my necessary food. 23:10-12. Memorize that. That's a man in a crucible. I have esteemed the words of his mouth more than my food. Friends are not turned off by distasteful sights. They sat down on the ground with him for 7 days and 7 nights, and no one spoke a word. One wag put it, they made their mistake when they started to speak. If they had just kept quiet. The late and wonderful, great Job Bailey lost 3 children. One at age 18 days after surgery. One at age 5 with leukemia. One at 18 years after a sledding accident complicated by hemophilia. 3 children. Others lived, but he lost 3. He writes in his work, The View from a Hearse, love that title. I was sitting torn by grief. Someone came and talked to me of God's dealings, of why it happened, of hope beyond the grave. He talked constantly. He said things I knew were true. I was unmoved, except to wish he would just go away. He finally did. Another came and sat down beside me. He didn't talk. He didn't ask leading questions. He just sat beside me an hour or more, listened when I said something, answered briefly, prayed simply, left. I was moved. I was comforted. I hated to see him go. When all of your studies are done and all of your work is finished and you've got the degree and you've now begun your ministry and you're engaged in work that is eternal, don't forget how to be a friend. Okay? May your prayer forever be, in my life, Lord, be glorified. Be glorified in my response to people in need. Be glorified in my home when no one else is looking. Be glorified in my responses when all hell breaks loose and I can't hear you and I can't find you. Be glorified in my friendships. Father, thank you for the things to be learned from an ancient book in the midst of a world moving too rapidly and is too noisy and too careless. Hear us today as we invite you to use us in significant ways when nobody's looking and the crowds are gone and the lights are over and you're at work. Be magnified, Father. Be glorified. In Jesus' name.